The Diamond Sutra, Chapter 21, Spoken Yet Not Spoken. Subhuti. Do not say the Tathagata has the thought, I have spoken Dharma. Do not think that way. And why? If someone says the Tathagata has spoken Dharma, he slanders the Buddha due to his inability to understand what I say. Subhuti. In the Dharma spoken, there is no Dharma which can be spoken. Therefore, it is called the Dharma spoken. Then the sagacious Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, will there be living beings in the future who will believe this sutra when they hear it spoken? The Buddha said, Subhuti, they are neither living beings nor no living beings. And why? Subhuti, living beings are spoken of by the Tathagata as no living beings. Therefore, they are called living beings. The Buddha then addressed Subhuti. Do not say that the Tathagata thinks, I have spoken Dharma. Do not say the Buddha has spoken Dharma. I do not think like that, and you should not think that way either. Someone who says that the Tathagata has spoken Dharma thereby slanders the Buddha. Such a person does not understand the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha spoke Dharma for 49 years, you say. Many sutras remain. How can one say he did not speak Dharma? Once Manjusri Bodhisattva asked, will the Buddha please once again turn the Dharma wheel? The Buddha replied, Manjusri, in 49 years, I have not spoken one word. How can you ask me to turn the Dharma wheel again? Does that not imply that in the past, I have already turned the Dharma wheel? That is what is meant by speaking yet not speaking. Once Subhuti was sitting in a cave cultivating, and a guide came, scattering flowers. Who has come to scatter flowers? Asked Subhuti. The god Sakra, came the reply. Sakra has come to scatter flowers. Why have you come here to scatter flowers? Asked Subhuti. Sakra said, because the Venerable One speaks prajna well. I have come to make offerings. Subhuti said, I have not said one word. How can you say I speak prajna? Sakra replied, the Venerable One has not spoken, and I have not heard a thing. Nothing spoken and nothing heard. That is true prajna. you think it over. Nothing spoken and nothing heard is true prajna. Have you heard prajna? If not, that is true prajna. In the same way, this section says, if someone says the Tathagata has spoken Dharma, he slanders the Buddha. To deviate from the sutras by one word is to practice the speech of demons. Yet to attach to the sutras when speaking is tantamount to slandering the Buddha. What should then be done? Why is it said that the Buddha did not speak Dharma? It is because the Buddha is without a mark of self, without a mark of others, without a mark of living beings. Being without all marks is being without a general physical appearance and without the perfection of marks. Since the Buddha is free of all marks, how can one say the Buddha speaks Dharma? How can that not be slander of the Buddha? The Buddha simultaneously speaks Dharma and sweeps it away. He speaks it and sweeps it away just as if he were sweeping the floor. Who speaks? Who sweeps? Who speaks and who cleans so that every last bit of filth is swept away? Why is it slander to say that the Buddha spoke Dharma? It is because someone who makes that statement has not thoroughly understood that the Dharma the Buddha spoke is without any real substance. Dharma is spoken because living beings make discriminations. If you made no discriminations, there would be no Dharma to speak. Then the sagacious Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, will there be living beings in the future who will believe this sutra when they hear it spoken?" Sagacious refers to the fact that Subhuti was an elder with wisdom and experience. The Buddha said, "Subhuti, they are neither living beings. They certainly are not living beings, because they have already resolved their hearts on the Bodhisattva way, nor no living beings, although they have produced the hearts of Bodhisattvas. Their cultivation still is not perfected. Since it is not perfected, they are not living beings. On the one hand, they are definitely not living beings, but at the same time, they still exist as living beings. Why? Living beings, those who have the causal conditions to become living beings, are spoken of by the Buddha as no living beings. They are living beings who have resolved their hearts on the Bodhisattva way, and so are not common, ordinary living beings. The following words did not appear in the early translation of the sutra, but were added to later editions. Then the sagacious Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, will there be living beings in the future who will believe this sutra when they hear it spoken?" The Buddha said, "Subhuti, they are neither living beings nor no living beings." And why? Subhuti, living beings are spoken of by the Tathagata as no living beings. Therefore, they are called living beings. In the past, there was a Dharma master who fell ill, died, and went before King Yama, who asked him, "After you were born, what did you do?" The Dharma master reflected and said, "What I did most in my life was recite the Vajra Sutra." King Yama said, "That's good. You recited the Vajra Sutra. Excellent. Sit down." King Yama then asked the Dharma master to recite the sutra for him. When the Dharma master finished the recitation, King Yama said, "Your recitation of the Vajra Sutra was short by one paragraph. You will find the additional words carved on a stone tablet at Chung Li Temple in Hao Chu. Go there and find them, and then inform everyone in the world about them. You have worked hard in your recitation of the sutra, so, although it is time for you to die, I will grant you 10 more years of life, so you can return to the world and encourage everyone to recite the Vajra Sutra." The Dharma master came to life again and requested the emperor to send a message to Chung Li Temple to find the section of text. There, carved on a stone tablet, was the Vajra Sutra, and it contained the additional paragraph. Early translations of the sutra did not have those words, but all later editions contained them. Chapter 22. There is no Dharma which can be obtained. Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, is it that the Tathagata, in attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, did not attain anything?" The Buddha said, so it is, Subhuti. As to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, there is not even the slightest Dharma which I could attain. Therefore, it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. After the Buddha had said that living beings were not living beings and not living beings, Subhuti asked, "In attaining the unsurpassed, proper, and equal right enlightenment, the one resultant Dharma of Buddhahood, there is not even the slightest Dharma to be attained. Therefore, it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. That is merely a false name, nothing more." There is no actual substance which one can point to and say, that is Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Why is there not even the smallest dharma which can be attained? The principle was discussed before. If you want to know if something is attainable, you first must know if it has been lost. If it was certain that Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi had been lost, then you could retrieve it. But basically, you have not lost it. It is what you have always had, your basic nature. In your clothing is a priceless gem. Do not further seek outside. Do not go outside in search of anything. The priceless gem is within your clothing. Cut open your clothing, and you will see it. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the unsurpassed, proper, and equal right enlightenment, is a special name for the perfect, full Buddha fruit. Your Buddha fruit is certainly not something that can be attained from outside. That which is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi also does not come from outside. It is what you have always had, your inherent family treasure. The riches are within your own household. If you turn away and seek outside, you will be abandoning what you have had all along. You will not find anything that way. Chapter 23. The pure heart practices good. Moreover, Subhuti, this Dharma is level and equal, with no high or low. Therefore, it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. To cultivate all good dharmas with no self, no others, no living beings, and no life, is to attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, good dharmas are spoken of by the Tathagata as no good dharmas. Therefore, they are called good dharmas. Wishing to speak in greater detail, Shakyamuni Buddha said to Subhuti, there is nothing higher than this Dharma, and there is nothing lower. Therefore, it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Although it is called the unsurpassed, proper, and equal right enlightenment, it is a Dharma without a mark of self, of others, of living beings, or of a life. It is devoid of attachment to self, attachment to dharmas, and attachment to emptiness. You must cultivate wholesome dharmas and abstain from practicing unwholesome dharmas. So it is said, I vow to cut off all evil. I vow to do all good. I vow to save all living beings. If you cut off evil and cultivate good, your good roots will increase and grow. By cultivating good dharmas, you naturally obtain unsurpassed, proper, and equal right enlightenment. Subhuti. Good dharmas are spoken of by the Tathagata as no good dharmas. Speaking from the point of view of the Tathagata, there are no good dharmas which can be obtained. Therefore, they are called good dharmas. They are merely given a false name. You should not have an attachment to good dharmas either. Attachment to good dharmas is still attachment. You should look upon everything as an illusion, a transformation, a dream, a bubble, or a shadow, as unreal. Chapter 24, Blessings and Wisdom Beyond Compare. Subhuti. If there were heaps of the 7 precious gems, equal in amount to all the Sumerus, kings of mountains, in 3,000 great thousand-world systems, and someone gave them as a gift, and if someone else were to take from this Prajnaparamita Sutra as few as 4 lines of verse, and receive, hold, read, recite, and speak them for others, his blessings and virtue would surpass the previous ones by more hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of times than either calculation or analogy could express. Sumeru is a Sanskrit word which means wonderfully high. Within 3,000 great thousand worlds, there are many, many wonderfully high mountains. How many of the 7 precious gems would it take to match the size of all those Mount Sumerus? And yet, if someone else were to take even so few as 4 lines of verse from the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Sutra of Wisdom arriving at the other shore, receive them in his heart, hold them with his body, read them from the book, recite them from memory, and explain them for others, how would his merit compare with the merit derived from the previous gift of gems? The blessings and virtue obtained by a person who speaks a 4-line gatha from the Vajra Sutra for others surpasses the previous blessings and virtue by more than 100,000 million billion times. The merit and virtue of this great Dharma cannot be reckoned in numbers or alluded to by analogy. The Vajra Sutra expresses the importance of not attaching to marks. It says not to be attached to the mark of self, of others, of living beings, and of a life. After hearing this sutra, ask yourself, is my mark of self empty or not? Is my mark of others, of living beings, and of a life empty or not? In general, if you possess a strong sense of self-importance, your Mount Sumeru of me, myself, and I has not been leveled. If you have an acute awareness of others, then the Mount Sumeru of others has not been flattened. The same is true for the Mount Sumeru of living beings and a life. Those who study the Buddha Dharma must knock over their Mount Sumerus and turn them into Dharma which is level and equal with no high or low. Therefore it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Those who understand the Vajra Sutra should be willing to give up their very bodies and lives to the point that they do not have anything at all. There's an old Chan saying, last year I was poor, but still had a place for the point of an all. This year I am so poor, I do not even have the all. This expresses the state of being without self, without others, without living beings, and without a life. Having understood the principle, you must put it into practice. Do not act as though nothing has happened. Chapter 25, transformations without what is transformed. Subhuti, what do you think? You should not maintain that the Tathagata has this thought. I shall take living beings across. I, Subhuti, do not have that thought. And why? There are actually no living beings taken across by the Tathagata. If there were living beings taken across by the Tathagata, then the Tathagata would have the existence of a self, of others, of living beings, and of a life. Subhuti, the existence of a self spoken of by the Tathagata, is no existence of a self. But common people take it as the existence of a self. Subhuti, common people are spoken of by the Tathagata as no common people. Therefore, they are called common people. Shakyamuni Buddha said, you sound hearers, do not say that. The Tathagata has the thought, I shall rescue living beings. Why? There actually are no living beings taken across by the Tathagata. The Tathagata and living beings are one. Therefore, the Tathagata rescues living beings without there being any living beings rescued. The Tathagata does not take living beings across. They take themselves across. The sixth patriarch said to the fifth patriarch, when one is deluded, one's master takes one across. But when one is enlightened, one takes oneself across. Once you understand, you take yourself across. When living beings are confused, the Buddha takes them across. Living beings need to wake up. But who wakes them up? It is not the Buddha. They wake up themselves. In other words, in the equality of the true Dharma realm, the Buddha does not take living beings across. Living beings and the Buddha are equal. There is not a little more of something on the part of a Buddha or a little less of something on the part of living beings. Because of that, it is said, there are actually no living beings taken across by the Tathagata. Were you to insist upon saying that there were living beings taken across by the Tathagata, then the Tathagata would have the existence of a self, of others, of living beings, and of a life. And the four marks would not be empty. The Buddha tells all living beings to leave all marks. How much the more so must the Buddha himself have done so? So when the Buddha rescues living beings, it is really the living beings who rescue themselves. The Buddha does not take living beings across because he has no mark of self. Subhuti, the existence of a self spoken of by the Tathagata, is no existence of a self. The existence of self refers to the false self. Is no existence of a self means it is not the true self. Common people take the false self as true, but common people are spoken of by the Tathagata as no common people. Therefore, they are called common people. Subhuti, those who are presently common people will eventually realize Buddhahood. So the Tathagata says they are not common people. You must not look upon them as ordinary. The Buddha said that all living beings have the Buddha nature and all can become Buddhas. It is only because of false thinking and attachment that they have not yet been able to certify to Buddhahood. The Buddha regards all living beings as his former fathers and mothers and as future Buddhas. Common people are just called common people because that is what they are right now. It's the end of chapter 25.